This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. Kansas Farm Service Agency Conservation and Price Support Chief Tonya Ackerman kicks off the show with an update on FSA. We are then joined by Jess Crockford to discuss an upcoming Prescribed Burn Association organizational meeting. Continuing the show is K-State Beef Reproduction Specialist Sandy Johnson. She says this time of year is when producers of spring-calving cattle herds need to make sure the cows are meeting their nutritional needs. K-State Beef Cattle Institute's Ask the Experts rounds out today's show. This week, Brad White, Brian Lubbers, and Bob Larson talk about if weaned calves that are being kept for a few months should be dewormed. That and more is coming up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Wednesday show with an update from the Farm Service Agency. And today we're joined by Kansas FSA Conservation and Price Support Chief Tonya Ackerman. Tonya, thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Hi, Shelby. It's nice to see you again. Thank you for having me.
And Tonya, an important thing to remember before we hop into this conversation today is that the Farm Service Agency is a federal government agency.
Yes, that's correct. Therefore, we are affected by the expired Farm Bill. The Farm Bill expired on September 30th of 2023, so we are waiting guidance to see if it's going to be renewed or extended or how they're going to handle that situation. So we just kind of sit and wait for right now.
So kind of a balancing act. Some things are still happening at FSA, but also putting hold on a few things.
Yes, there's still plenty to do. We are funded through November the 17th through a continuing resolution. There is still plenty of activity going on at the local county office as well as our state office throughout the state. We've been making CRP payments in October. That's kind of also our PLC payments. It's kind of what we've worked for all year. So for CRP, we've actually paid out over $71 million in Kansas. And I know Todd was here and he spoke about the farm program side, and he has now paid out $178 million in those programs, which include LFP, Ark County, ERP, and some of those other programs. So even though we're really happy to be able to help our producers at this time because the yields seem to be all over the place during fall harvest. So we're happy to be able to help them at this time.
Just a reminder for those producers, they aren't going to be getting a physical check.
That's correct. Most of them are direct deposit into their account. So they can check their account usually 3 to 4 days after we push that button at the office to release that payment.
And you mentioned that some things are on hold right now at the Farm Service Agency, and one of those things involves dairy.
Yes, the DMC program, the Dairy Margin Coverage Program, is on hold at this time. In past years, usually from September to December, we are doing sign up for the next year. But until we know what the Farm Bill is going to hold for us, that program the sign up is on hold. I won't say the program is on hold. We are still making payments, but the sign up for 2024 is on hold at this time until we learn more.
And could you just give us a quick reminder about what that program is?
You bet. The DMC program is for the dairy producers who are commercially producing milk. And that way, it's the difference between the milk market price and the feed get to be quite a difference, and they supplement the dairy producers with a payment.
So something dairy producers can be on the lookout for, but just don't have the ability to sign up for right now.
Yes, that's correct. We are still making payments through 2023, and we pay 2 months in arrears. So if a payment does trigger based on their formula, they should still get payments potentially through February of 2024. But we just cannot sign up at this time for 2024 DMC program.
And there are some things that people can still be doing at the Farm Service Agency, maybe a little bit more housekeeping type, and one of those being operator changes.
Absolutely. There's always things to do. If your owner or operator has changed on your farm, maybe a land ownership change, you can still go in and get that taken care of while we're kind of in a slower time here. You can also do your small grain reporting if you want to go ahead and certify your wheat. The deadline for that is December 15th or 15 days after your planting is completed.
And Tonya, as we've talked about housekeeping things, there is one more thing that you would like to mention to producers related to CRP.
Yes, I did want to mention that when your CRP acres expire, the land is returned to grazing, and the owners are tax different, so you might want to go to your county appraiser's office to ensure that acreage is classified as grassland just for tax purposes.
So for a lot of things when it comes to the Farm Service Agency, not waiting till the last minute is a great option.
Absolutely. As soon as you get it done, get in there and get it taken care of.
And Tonya, a lot of places across Kansas have gotten some rain. However, a drought program is still taking place.
That's correct, Shelby. We are still administering ECP, which is the Emergency Conservation Program. 43 counties across the state have been implementing that for the extreme drought that began in 2022. So we're in your second year of that. If you don't know much about it, kind of briefly what it is if you've lost, like one example is if you had a working well or a water source that dried up because of the drought, we can help the producer get a replacement for that, a replacement well or water line, something like that.
And one more reminder about a program that FSA isn't facilitating but is supporting.
We are just getting the word out to all the farmers and ranchers that if you have experienced any discrimination by USDA through the USDA Farm Loan Program, we ask that you call 1-800-721-0970, or you can go to the website at www.22007apply.gov. One thing I want to mention is that deadline originally had been October 31st, and now this has been extended to January the 13th. So if you're having any issues with that, they have set $2.2 billion aside in funding available to farmers and ranchers who have experienced this discrimination.
And Tonya, as always, if anyone has any questions about the Farm Service Agency or any of their programs that are taking place, where can they find out more information?
You can always go straight to your local county office. They will have all your records there and can help you. If you have something else you'd like to ask, you can always contact the state office.
Tonya, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and give us an update from the Farm Service Agency.
Thank you so much for having me, Shelby.
That was Kansas Farm Service Agency Conservation and Price Support Chief Tonya Ackerman. If you'd like to find more information about the program she mentioned today or other programs through the Farm Service Agency, you can do so by going to your local FSA office or by going online to Farmers.gov. If you're looking to find more information about the Financial Discrimination Assistance Program, you can do that by going to 22007apply.gov. Again, that is 22007apply.gov. As always, I will link these resources in today's show notes, which, as always, you can find on agtoday.net. Before we cut to a break, we're now going to be joined by Southwest Regional Coordinator for the Kansas Prescribed Fire Council and Kansas Grazing Lands Coalition, Jess Crockford. Jess, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Shelby.
Jess, today we're talking about the Prescribed Burn Association organizational meeting that's happening tomorrow. However, before we hop into the details of that meeting, could you first share a little bit of information about what is the Prescribed Burning Association?
Basically, a Prescribed Burning Association is neighbors getting together as a group with an organizational structure and going through some training and helping each other basically apply fire to the landscape.
And why is this something that's important for Kansas residents or residents beyond Kansas?
Well, fire in itself is a difficult tool to manage and put onto the land. But with the assistance of the Burn Association, it makes it a lot easier. The fire itself is a vital part of any grassland ecosystem. I would venture to say that fire is as important to a healthy rangeland as rain and sunshine are. It keeps woody species in check, and it helps with the diversity of the plants out there, and it also invigorates our warm season grasses that we have here in Kansas.
In this upcoming meeting, Jess, is it really talking about that or helping put together that team to do some of that training?
Well, the meeting's going to be talking about how we put together the organization and how we get neighbors to meet together and structure their particular group so that they can work together.
And with this meeting coming up just tomorrow and taking place in Overbrook, Kansas, for those people who might be interested in this information, but it's not feasible for them to be able to go, how might they go about if they would like something like this in their area?
Well, they should contact their local county agents or their NRCS office and visit with those folks and see if they can't put together a local meeting of their own to generate the interest that's needed to facilitate the formation of a group.
And just as you look towards the meeting for tomorrow, what makes you excited to be there?
Okay, it's always interesting to meet with people and promote the use of fire and see the enthusiasm they get when they see the changes that take place in the environment. Fire is a very inexpensive tool to apply if it's applied correctly, and it's interesting to watch the expressions on people's faces as they do see those changes take place in their ecosystem.
So at that meeting tomorrow, who do you recommend take the time to attend?
I would recommend that any person interested in applying fire as a management tool attend. This could be landowners, land operators. This could be just neighbors that have a friend that's interested in doing it. Very important that we get a lot of people involved because it does take a lot of manpower to apply fire safely and correctly.
And Jess, what are those details for that upcoming meeting?
Okay, the meeting's going to take place on November 2nd at Grace Community Church in Overbrook, Kansas. It's going to start at 6 p.m. and it'll run to about 8 p.m.
And do people need to register for this event, or can they just attend?
They do have a registration, but the meeting is open, so if the last minute people are available to come, they certainly can.
Jess, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and share with us some information about this upcoming meeting on November 2nd.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
That was Jess Crockford, Southwest Regional Coordinator for the Kansas Prescribed Fire Council and Kansas Grazing Lands Coalition, and he was discussing the upcoming Prescribed Burn Association Organizational Meeting that's taking place tomorrow, November 2nd, from 6 to 8 p.m., at the Grace Community Church in Overbrook, Kansas. Attendees of the meeting will receive guidance on establishing a Prescribed Burn Association Board of Directors and a membership. In today's show notes on agtoday.net, I will put a link where you can learn more information about this meeting. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but when we come back, we'll be joined by beef reproduction specialist Sandy Johnson. You're tuned back into Agriculture Today, and we continue our show discussing something that spring-calving cattle herd producers probably want to keep in mind as their cattle enter their third trimester. And to talk about this topic, we're joined by K-State beef reproduction specialist Sandy Johnson. Sandy, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Well, good morning. Glad to be here.
And Sandy, as we talk today, it's obviously not spring. However, there is something that spring-calving cattle herds need to keep in mind this time of year.
Right. You know, producers know the importance of really the third trimester of their cow herd and what's going on in that pregnancy. But in our spring herds and the way things are in the state of Kansas, they're doing 5 other things like maybe planting wheat or harvesting corn or, you know, any number of other things. So the cow herd often gets, you know, maybe the calves are weaned and cows seem fine and we let other things take up our time. But when we think about what's going on in this pregnant cow in that third trimester, things are changing rapidly. And if we get behind in that fetal growth and how we manage that, it can be really hard to catch up and cost us down the road. And so we really want to pay attention to that and monitor our cows, particularly this time of year.
So what are some of those changes with the third trimester that a producer should keep in mind?
Right. So during that third trimester is when we really have exponential growth of that fetus. All right. And so the weight of the cow in the first and second trimester in terms of added weight from pregnancy is nominal. At the time of calving, you know, she needs to gain about 150 pounds of fetus and fluids. All right. So if we think about that in the third trimester, she needs to gain 150 pounds before she calves. If her body weight doesn't change, she's effectively using body resources then to put into that calf, taking that away, and her empty body weight, could we easily measure that, would actually be decreasing. So she's losing body condition. And all our years of research has showed us that if we don't have cows in adequate condition, body condition at the time of calving, then it's really hard to improve their condition post-calving. We've got so much milk production in them that we're going to delay when they start cycling. That's delays conception, the age of the calf, so we got a lighter calf next year. Okay, so our ability to have those cows cycle early and conceive early, produce the most pounds of calf, really start now. And if we take care of this cow now, it makes a lot of the rest of the year go much easier.
As the temperature has gotten cooler, Sandy, you want to remind producers that those cattle might actually be playing a trick on your eyes.
Right. As we get into cooler weather, they're going to start to grow that hair coat. And, we want to evaluate body condition. So we're looking, on the top line of that cow, looking for spinous processes and how sharp she is behind the shoulder. If we are confused by hair length, that could make us think they're in better condition than they really are. And I think the other thing that's hard for us is if we're checking those cows every day, a gradual change isn't necessarily apparent because, you see them every day. Just like if somebody hasn't seen a growing kid for a long time, they say, wow, you've grown. Well, the parents maybe notice it because, the pants keep getting shorter or something, but in a short period of time, you don't see those changes happening. So that's why it's very important to body condition score cows and, actually write down a body condition score, or we have a body condition score record book that we recommend using. And, you don't have to run cows to the chute to body condition score. You can use a piece of paper or our body condition score book and essentially, okay, that cow's in a 5, this cow's in a 6. Just make a tally mark. It doesn't matter if you miss a cow or two, if you get most of them, and do that every so often, and particularly at the start of the third trimester, and say, what is it going to take to get this cow in a body condition score of 5 or greater prior to calving?
And so what are some of those nutritional needs that producers might want to kind of input into their feeding regimen?
Right. Well, we've got producers feeding a whole range of different things this year. So it's important to know, if you're a drought situation and feeding something different, very important to be testing what that feed is and figure out how much energy and protein it maybe is needed in supplementation of what your base forage is. And that's still true for producers that are feeding their quote unquote normal feed stuff, because there's not any guarantee that they have the same nutrient density every year. And we need to account for some of that variability. And so we want to test those feedstuffs and make a plan for that cow gain. And the importance of doing it timely, I use the example of if a cow is thin and she needs to gain the weight of pregnancy plus a body condition score, say she's a 4, we want to get her up to a 5. So she needs 150 pounds of pregnancy and 80 pounds more to bring up her body condition. So we've got 230 pounds of gain. If we give ourselves 100 days to do that, that's only 2.3 pounds a day. But if we give ourselves less than that, then the gain we need goes up much higher. And if you just think about a growing calf, the quality of the diet to get a higher gain is higher and more expensive, essentially, to get that higher rate of gain. Well, we would like to make that change in those cows, if they need it, as inexpensively as possible. And this is where planning can save producers a lot of money. So they're not trying to gain this 30 days before calving, because it's, straight corn diet. If you really had thin cows, it just becomes really out of the reach of most people. So a little bit of planning gets our cows in the body condition score we need, as well as saves money. And this is particularly true then for our first calf heifers, because on top of the body condition, they may be in okay body condition, but they're still growing. So we have these huge nutrient demands that come in this third trimester, and planning helps us manage the cost and deliver the nutrients effectively.
And Sandy, even though today a lot of those cattle herds probably aren't starting their third trimester right now, there are a few things that producers should really get started and keep in mind.
Right. And, some of our purebred producers may be starting to calve in February, particularly with their replacement heifers. And so that means the start of their third trimester is early November. So November, December, we need to be, making a plan. And obviously we do have some later calving herds as well. But when you put those bulls in, so that tells you when you should start calving. And you need to know when the third trimester starts for your cows and manage accordingly.
And Sandy, what are some of those resources that producers could use to hopefully help track some of this and have a successful herd?
If you go to ksubeef.org, under our feed and nutrition educational resources, there's a number of things related to body condition, how to body condition score, feeding cows by body condition score, the body condition score record book I mentioned. There's a little guide that if you're not familiar with body condition scoring would kind of help give you a crutch to do that. And if you're uncomfortable with body condition scoring, please don't hesitate to contact one of our extension professionals, either in a local office or one of the state specialists. It's just such a critical skill. And unfortunately, when we look at our NOMS data, even in the large herds, only 30% of producers say they use body condition scoring. So an underutilized tool, and really encourage people to use this simple planning to help reduce cost and improve cow performance.
That was Kansas State University beef reproduction specialist Sandy Johnson. If you'd like to read more on this topic, you can do so by going to ksubeef.org and searching for the Start of the Third Trimester, the Most Underappreciated Day of the Year article. I will also link it in today's show notes on agtoday.net. You can also find the tools she mentioned by going to ksubeef.org. Again, that is ksubeef.org. Before we cut to a break, we're now going to be joined by USDA's Rod Bain and USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey as they discuss the current conditions with El Nino and what the possible impacts could be to our nation's agriculture.
What might the El Nino climate pattern expected to dominate this winter's weather in our country mean from an agricultural standpoint? USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey starts with western water supplies for irrigation, where water storage was boosted by last winter's significant precipitation accumulation. However,
some of the biggest reservoirs, especially those in the Colorado River Basin and in the Rio Grande, remain critically low following a generation of drought going back 20 to 25 years or more.
And El Nino could lead to drier than normal conditions in parts of the Pacific Northwest.
We'll have to keep an eye on the Columbia River Basin and some of the smaller waterways in the Northwest for potential signs of developing drought or intensifying drought.
El Nino is also expected to lend itself to favorable conditions for winter wheat and livestock for most of the country this winter. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but we'll be back with more ahead.
You're tuned back into Agriculture Today. I'm Allie Nippert for Shelby Varner, and we conclude our Wednesday show with this week's Ask the Experts from the Beef Cattle Institute.
Hi, welcome to Beef Cattle Institute's Ask the Experts. I'm Brad White, and happy to have two great experts here today, Dr. Brian Lubbers.
Good morning.
And Dr. Bob Larson.
Hello, guys.
On this program, we get a chance to answer your questions. If you have a question, you can reach out to us on Facebook or send us an email at bci@ksu.edu. And when our experts answer your question, they get up to 10 points for their answers. Today's question is a really good one, and it is about weaning calves. And the producer asked, after I wean my calves, should I deworm them if I'm going to keep them at home in a dry lot for 60 to 80 days? Bob, I'm going to go to you first.
This is kind of a tough one, and this is my thinking. Young growing calves are probably the calves that are most inhibited or harmed by a parasite load. And so I'm going to get more improvement in weight gain and those types of things from a deworming of a young calf than I would an adult. However, you gave the caveat of I'm only going to own them for 60 days. I'm probably not going to get enough weight gain advantage during that 60 days to pay for the dewormer. So I'm going to say maybe not. That's a no. It's a no.
That's a no. All right. So Bob starts out with 5 points. Brian?
I am also going to say no. I agree. It's the 60 to 80 day caveat. I really kind of struggle with that. And Bob mentioned the weight gain or lack of weight gain, I guess, to pay back for the product. I'm going to take a slightly different perspective. My concern is that with that time frame, the potential for resistance outweighs the benefit for me. Product resistance, right? There's a concept out there called refugia. And so when we deworm animals, essentially what the dewormer does is it wipes out the susceptible parasites in this case, leaves the resistant ones, and those are the ones that are then shed. And so what I'm probably at that 60 to 80 day window, probably shedding a lot of resistant parasites into my, and then those animals leave, and now any new animals or animals that stay, that's what they're exposed to. I feel like if I'm keeping those animals longer, I'm still going to have the same phenomenon, but I get back some of the advantage and trade-off. But if I do that cycle repeatedly, all I'm left with is resistant parasites.
Great answer there. And let me break out just a little bit. So the refugia is we might leave some that were not dewormed, but what you're saying is during that period of time, because it's so short, they're going to be shedding eggs that are probably more resistant. And Bob, you had a response.
To me, that all comes down to then what are we doing with the calves after we deworm them? If we put them into a dry lot, well, I'm not as worried about resistance, because the worms that we're worried about with cattle, they require blades of grass to finish their life cycle. So this is a totally different question whether they're going out onto a grass trap or grass pasture versus a dry lot. So again, maybe that's the reason to really talk to your veterinarian, because, simple yes and no answers are kind of rare. I would really be interested in where are these cattle going to go after they're dewormed.
Follow-up question for you guys. Are there any other things that would change your decision? Either something else that the dewormer might give you an advantage, or...
Yeah, I'll start. So I think maybe one factor to consider, I think that's what we're talking about, right? This is a complicated question. One factor to consider is, if that dewormer is part of a preconditioning program and I'm receiving a premium and that's part of it, then yeah, I'm not going to commit to a yes, but I'd be less committed to an absolute no if that was another factor in the consideration.
Yeah, another thing is you probably, depending on the product, some products will also give me some fly control. And so that might be important to me if I can not use a fly control product, so save some money there. So that changes the economics a little bit. Or the other thing is, commonly when calves go away from the ranch of origin and into a stocker operation or a feedlot operation, they're going to be dewormed again. And so if I did deworm them now and I had communication, even if I didn't own those cattle, there might be an opportunity to, again, have some benefit coming back to me because the next person in the chain doesn't have to deworm them.
Okay, so Brian's ahead 8-7, but Bob, I'll give you the toss-up question. What is the number of days that would make you change your maybe no to a yes? If I said I'm going to keep them X number of days.
112.
112. Because it's oddly specific, Bob takes home the win. So thanks for your questions. If you have any other questions for us, you can send them to us at bci@ksu.edu.
Once again, that was Kansas State University's BCI's Brad White, Brian Lubbers, and Bob Larson. That's all we have for you today on Agriculture Today, but we'll be back with more tomorrow.